All right, Casey, what did you bring?
I brought a big fat journal.
A fat journal. All right. And Ricardo, what did you bring?
I brought a T-shirt.
Ooh, look at that. Repping. All right. Welcome to both of you and to any of you who are listening and watching this to the podcast, Not Quite Strangers. My name is Valerie Hope and I am your host. And I am so glad that every time I have a wonderful opportunity to meet and introduce some people, you guys get a chance to peek into that conversation. I have two gentlemen here who have not met each other. Well, they met like 20 minutes ago and we'll have a meaningful conversation. But the podcast, more than anything, is an opportunity to build connection, inspire curiosity, and in some way, shape, or form, challenge status quo. If you have not already subscribed to the podcast, please go to notquitestrangers.com and subscribe so that you get this episode and many others directly in your inbox, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Connect to Joy. And with that said, let's start off with these two gentlemen. So I know Casey Field here out in California because he and I are colleagues at the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. So we go way back a whole year, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, before the dinosaurs, we've known each other.
Before the dinosaurs. Well, kind of, before the pandemic, like pre-pandemic is like a whole thing.
Well, yeah, because life just reset after that. So
it did. We call it PP now, 2021 PP. Post-pandemic, pre-pandemic.
No? Oh, got it. I mean, that wasn't the name that I got from that, but
That's good. Never mind. This is PG.
Got it.
So Casey, I invited Casey because you have just a wonderful sense of people. You're a people person, and your history in the armed forces, actually specifically Air Force, I thought would make a really interesting conversation. And to introduce you to my little brother.
I think I might have missed that. Did you say something?
Ricardo Hope. So Ricardo Hope, affectionately known by the family as Ricky. So I'm sorry, I'm going to call you Ricky because it's my show. Also has been actually a previous podcast guest before. He was on Time to Come Alive, and I will gladly put the link because he had some interesting, I would say, nuggets, let's call it that, during that interview. But more than anything, Ricky, you too, you have a great sense of humor. I thought you and Casey kind of resemble each other.
Wow. Everyone with a beard looks alike, right? Is that what it is?
It's the bald beard. Yeah. I don't know. There's something. And also to share your experience in the Marines. But the two of you, I think, beyond the armed forces connection, are also really devoted fathers. And so that's the other piece. I'm like, that's going to be interesting to have a conversation. Two men who devoted their lives to the armed forces, but also to their families. And that's kind of what I decided would be a nice thread to pull into our conversation. But before we go into that, I'm curious, why did you say yes to being on this podcast?
For me, I said yes, one, because it's you, Valerie. That's the top answer. And two, I thought it would be really interesting to get to know Ricardo. I have been listening to what you've been doing on your podcast, Time to Come Alive. Like you said, we've known each other for a while now. And I thought it was a great opportunity. So, yeah, I'm here now and I'm just delighted to be here with you.
Right on. Good. Thank you, Casey. And Ricky, why did you say yes?
I think you twisted my arm and you said, if I don't do it, you'll never come visit me and the kids again. Oh, that's not what you said? Oh,
it was not. It wasn't about the podcast.
No, I think we kind of talked about it as you were developing this concept, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. This is neat. And then we talked about like having those people that you, especially in the military, you see it all the time. You move somewhere and you don't know somebody, but they know somebody and it's like, oh, before you know it, they're your friends. So I thought, oh, that'd be a pretty cool concept on the podcast, and so here we are.
Hey, cool. So thank you so much. Yeah, Ricardo and his daughter, Carly, actually had a large role and like configuring all the things that went into this and putting it all together. So thank you both. So now I've asked each of you to bring something to share about yourselves. So let's start with you, Casey. You said you brought a journal. What's this big fat journal about?
This big fat journal was actually inspired to be created, I think it was my last month in the military. And as I was transitioning out, I caught a viral infection that actually led to sepsis, and I was in the hospital. And they gave me a 50-50 chance of living. And I just had my son Oliver at the time. He wasn't even 6 months old. And so as I was sitting in the hospital, I didn't get to see him. I only got to see my wife, Holly. And I thought to myself in that moment, if I don't have anything, I want to be able to let this little human, my son, know exactly how much I care about him and share stories with him. If I don't get the chance to do that anymore. So when I wrote the first entry, I thought it was going to be one of 10, right? And it's been 7 years now. And I write journal entries to both him and my youngest son now.
Wow.
Once, every month or twice a month, just to let them know what's going on with the world, like the world we live in, and try to give life lessons that I'm probably not going to be able to give as they're an adult because I'm not in that situation. So this journal is very important to me. So I'm so happy that you asked for us to bring something.
That's beautiful. And I'm glad that the 50-50 chance that you were given actually paid off. That's good. Thank you. I'm glad. So you have two children, 2-year-old and a
7-year-old.
7-year-old. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't seen the journal yet. You're just accumulating entries. At some point you'll give it to them.
Yeah, they haven't seen it, and it's funny because I'll take like pictures of them in the moment, and then I'll show them the picture, and then I'll put it in the journal. I'll kind of write something about it, and they have no idea. They're gonna look back and be like, "Oh, Dad, why are you taking? Oh, that's right. This picture goes with this story." And some of it's, just fun stuff. But my hope is to make a few volumes, and if they get time, that they'll read it and they'll just remember that they, because my wife writes in this too, that they have two parents that really cared about them and, really loved them, and maybe had to make hard choices sometimes, but yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. And Ricky, I see you nodding your head. What's your reaction to that?
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's you're basically thinking about your legacy to your children in a way that's not material. It's I love how you said the situations you're in, it's going to be hard to kind of think back as to, oh, this is what it was like then. And so being able to capture your thoughts in the moment gives it a little bit more poignancy. So I thought that's pretty cool. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Cool. And Ricky, what did you bring?
So mine is just a t-shirt. This is a t-shirt, which is amazing that it's lasted so long, but bought it in Camp Lejeune. It had to be around 2000, 2001. So it's about 20 years old and there's no holes in it. So that's,
wow.
And it gets worn often. So
what does it mean to you?
It's just representative of my service in the Marine Corps. It's kind of an old style t-shirt, it was a throwback then. And so just one of those things I get to remember, oh yeah, I was a Marine. I got to be part of the club for a little bit.
So I'm curious so first of all, that's one of the ties, right, between the two of you is the armed forces. So what was it about the armed forces that changed you or impacted you the most? Like looking back now, both of you have been out now for, Casey, how long have you been out?
8 years.
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricky for 3, 2?
So a year and a half.
Year and a half only? Oh, that's right. Okay, so now looking back, what was like the biggest impact that the military had on your lives that mattered to you?
I think the biggest thing.
Question.
Yeah, I think for me it was just the different opportunities I got to have, the people I got to serve with. just places that my family has gone to. Which that's probably the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm. Case, what about you?
Uh, for me, there was a ton of impact for me. I joined the military at 17 to kind of get out of a place that I really didn't want to be in as a kid. And so it gave me the opportunity to do that. And then, just like Ricardo said, travel around the world, embrace and grain myself in other cultures, learn a lot about myself. And I think that's in the military is the first time I really understood the value of, chosen family, where, you know, sometimes, I guess you might say water's thicker than blood when you're talking about, your chosen family, um, because you really just vibe with people and you realize that, there's just this connection that you don't find anywhere else. You go through a lot of stuff together and they become, your brothers and sisters. So
Mm,
those are the biggest impacts for me.
yeah. Are you, so what is your relationship now with people that you served with?
Well, I keep in contact with a few people that I serve with. Most importantly, is, I've got, my best friend. He was my best man at my wedding, and I consider him my dear, dear brother. His name is Corbin, and, I'm godfather to his daughter. And, so we keep in contact, not as much as I'd like, but he's over in Germany. He's still, works in government work over there. So, um, but yeah, it's been an amazing relationship. Like, it's so funny because Ricardo, you might be able to relate to this. Like, even though, you kind of, I think Ricardo, you were talking about this earlier, your buddies get separated and then you can just run into them, or you can just pick up the phone and it's like, there's no time that passed
Yeah,
whatsoever.
like you never skip the beat.
You
Yeah.
never skip the beat.
Yeah.
Never skip the beat. It's amazing.
Ricky, you have a similar situation, right, with your friend, the person that you're most in touch with in the military, right? Ralph?
Somewhat, I guess. Yeah, Ralph.
Yeah.
So we were roommates at we were at the basic school, and we've always just kind of, every once in a while, blue moon, we pick up the phone and talk, but just the same thing. Um, Never really skip a beat in terms of what's going on. I remember one time he was stationed in Iwakuni, Japan, and his family came down to Okinawa for a little vacation type thing, and they couldn't go to where they were going, but they were in the area, and we're like, "Hey, why don't you just come over?" So he came over with his family and his kids, and like our kids, and they'd never really met, but they were like, whew, they
You
were
were
like,
not quite strangers.
exactly, right. But they were like, fast friends, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to leave. I want to play with." Um, and so I think that extends, from between the service members, but also to their families. Like, we just form really fast bonds. I think a little faster than you would in a civilian side.
What would you attribute that to? Both of you have said that connection, right? That water's thicker than blood in those cases. But aside from the shared, we're in the same role or in, maybe stationed someplace else, what do you think you
Mm.
would attribute to that connection, that trust?
I think primarily the experiences. You kind of have an idea of where they came from. Like, oh, you did these things. I did similar things, and then you can, you kind of get over the formalities of, well, who are you? Where are you from? What did you do? It almost doesn't matter that what state you came from. It's like, oh, you were in this service or this MOS, or you were stationed in this location. You just form bonds really quickly that way.
Yeah, I think, like, just to kind of, build on what Ricardo was saying, like when I hear you say that, Ricardo, I'm just reminded of like how the military is not a job. The military is a life. So when you meet people, the first time you meet them, you're really incorporating them into your life. It's not like you're just going to see them 8 hours a day and then, you're gone. So, um, those kind of, and then of course you have so many things in common that you can bond over, and it just transcends like all the other divisive stuff that we could say that are differences. You've got so many things that you can bond over, and then it just starts, like Ricardo said, that really quick friendship.
Hmm. So you guys are clearly meeting each other for the first time. We both served in different branches of the forces, right? So Casey, Air Force, Ricardo, Marines. So what are those questions? Like, what would you guys ask each other or tell each other, just knowing that?
It's funny. I've been kind of holding back, like, because I'd like to know. Okay, so Casey, what was your MOS?
My MOS, we call it an AFSC, was 3PO, and that's security forces. So it's
Okay.
law enforcement.
All right. And then what duty stations were you in, or were you stationed?
Ricardo, these are really great questions. I'm like, man, he's gonna go for it. He's like, that's because Air Force, I'm Marines. Let me just get this out in the open. You guys don't do much. That's what I thought you were
I
going
didn't
to
say that. I did not say that.
Wow.
I mean, I'm just trying to, like, it's like sizing you up. Like, okay, so security forces, all right. So now what locations? And then
Yeah.
at that point, maybe there's some places that we, that we were together, or at least maybe the same ground.
Well, I gotta tell Valerie, like, this is what, especially with sister services, this is what they do. Like, this is the first thing that we do. But no, you said you were in Iwakuni. I passed through Iwakuni. My second duty station was in Misawa, Japan.
Ah, okay, all right. So up there, up north. Nice.
Yeah, I was in Misawa for a minute. I absolutely loved every bit of it. My first duty station was Barksdale.
Oof.
Why is that? Why oof?
I mean, we're there. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a state, a base, Barstow. That's just kind of, it's out there. It's not like a favorite place. It's not like, oh, Kaneohe, Hawaii, or San Diego.
Yeah.
It's like you're just out there in the desert, the California desert, I guess.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barksdale was in Louisiana. It's in the Arklatex.
Oh.
But I mean, the comment you made was like spot on. It was definitely a oof type of place. I don't know. Moving on, after Japan, after Misawa, Japan, I came to Beale Air Force Base out here in California, and I've been here ever since. And I think, let's see if my math is right, this is probably the longest I've been in any one place in my entire life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where were you besides Iwakuni?
So I was in Okinawa, not Iwakuni.
Oh, okay.
But let's see. Started off in school in Quantico, then Lejeune, then Parris Island, South Carolina, then back to Quantico, then to San Diego, California, Miramar, and from there school in Kansas, then to Hawaii.
Wow.
I was at Camp Smith, and then we went to Okinawa, Japan, and then back to Quantico, and then that's where I retired.
Daggone. You went all over the place.
Well, it was like
just one or two places, I guess.
So it was what, 20 years in the Marines. Casey, you were 8 years?
Yeah.
13
years. 13 years. So similar. So okay. So at this point in time, right? So you've shared the data, right? Where you were, the MOS, all that good stuff. So then what happens? Like, what's the next question, or what's the point of connection that you made besides like the places you've been?
So because our places never quite overlapped, it's because then it'd be kind of like, if let's say you were at it's a Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, then it's like, oh, when were you there? Where did you go? What places you go to? That kind of thing. So you explore those, you pull that thread in terms of similarities. But what I would ask though, because we actually looked at going to Misawa, that was one of my like I say dreams, I guess you could almost say, because I wanted to go to the ice festival.
Chitose.
And I can't remember where it was, but it was up there in the northern prefecture in Japan.
Yeah.
And Misawa was going to be the closest place that we can kind of stay on base and then just take the train up that way. But like I heard, there's a lot of snow, and so where we were in Okinawa, no snow. Misawa, looking at pictures, just like.
Yeah, it was.
It's almost like Canada.
Yeah, Misawa, the Canada of Japan. No, it was great because I mean, I always wanted to get down to Okinawa, but it didn't happen. But honestly, if you still get a chance to go to the snow festival, and the thing's on point. It's up in Hokkaido Prefecture. Um, I want to, Valerie, I'm
Yes.
listening to your question, and you're like, besides all the data, it almost sounds like you want us to go a little deeper. Is that right?
Why would I want that?
I
No.
mean,
I could bring it deeper, but I did want
oh, I
to,
know.
I wanted a small disclaimer for the two of my guests here. Both of them have children in the vicinity. And so you
Mhm.
might hear some joyous sounds of youth in the background. And I think
We took
Casey,
our
you
little
have,
ones out of the house so that they're at our friend's house right now. But
oh,
the big ones, you might have seen her try to sneak in.
okay.
Sorry.
It's all good. We'll say hi if they come on camera. But I did want to mention that in case people are like hearing any kind of background noise that might be distracting. But I did say, hey, this is a family show, so your
Mhm.
family should be a part of it. No worries. So going deeper. So here's the thing I'm really curious about because um, Marines, Air Force.
Mhm.
Not. Do you guys have a football team? Is there like an Army Navy kind
Mhm.
of rivalry between them?
The
I don't
academies,
hear.
the
Just the
academies,
academies,
yes,
right?
yeah. But the Marine Corps doesn't have its own academy. It's part of the Naval Academy.
Right.
So not quite a direct link that way. I do know that the All Marine basketball team, versus the All Marine Air, basketball, excuse me, All Air Force basketball team, there is some kind of rivalry there because
Right.
Air Force has a lot of, you know, they have a lot of their officers who went to the Air Force Academy and played basketball there on their Air Force team. At least that's what I've heard. That's why they usually do really well. But that's a rumor on the street.
Was that some shade? Was that shady,
No,
Casey?
no.
I mean, I felt a little bit, and then also, instead of just being like, yeah, they're a really good team, Ricardo was like, well, what happened was, because the Air Force Academy, they were good there, and they went to the
I'm
Air Force
just
team.
I'm just saying, just throwing that out there.
No, but I want to go back to something you mentioned, Casey, because you did say when Ricardo asked you about your MOS, you were saying that, oh, this is just a way to like diminish somehow, right? You didn't use that word, but
Oh no,
Not
no, like
diminish.
not
not
diminish, but
diminish.
when two people of different services get together, it's just like that's the thing. Like it's not a. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What would you say, Ricky?
Um, it's a quick pulse check. Hey, so did you have it as hard as I did? Because Air Force lives in dormitories. They eat four-star restaurants or five-star restaurants, and Marines we eat MREs and we stay in tents, two-man tents, so usually or sometimes, a lot of times without tents, and so things are just a little different between the services.
Yeah, man, 20 years in a tent. How did you make it?
you know, one day at a time. You just gotta.
See, this is like, because like, usually when I run into, sister services, they'll be like, Air Force, huh? Huh. Bet you saw a lot of paper cuts in your life.
Oh,
Well, I wasn't gonna go like that. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the Air Force. Got a lot of Air Force friends as well. In fact, one of my good friends that we went to school together, he's a Air Force guy. He's an Air Force contractor.
Mhm.
But everyone is not immune to a little bit of I
I
guess
mean,
jaw jacking kind of.
exactly. It comes with like, but but it's never in like we never do it in bad faith. It's just kind of like that
Yeah.
expectation. You get together and then you kind of like, have a few laughs, make fun of each other a little bit, and then you just head out to like a bar or you like do some. I mean, that's just kind of the military way. It's a
But
way of bonding.
yes,
bonding.
I
Okay.
think not even just yeah, you can see it in the military probably a little bit more so, but I think that happens in normal friendships as well. If you're any of your friends, you kind of have you have this little banter back and forth, making fun of each other, but all in good fun,
Right.
not as a mean to tear people down, just
Yeah.
it's almost like kind of evening leveling the playing field, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah.
Got it.
We have I mean, and there's a ton of overlap. Like with my AFSC, what other branch is called MOS. We had
What
all
does
the other
AFSC stand for, Casey? Just for the civilians out there.
Air Force Specialty Code.
Specialty code?
Uh-huh.
And MOS stands for?
Military occupational specialty.
Got it. Okay, so now continue.
Thank you. So where I went to tech school at, we actually had I know the Navy, I'm pretty sure the Marines came, and the Army, we all trained at the same base for law enforcement. So there's a lot of overlap. And then when we deploy, I mean, it's common for us to work side by side with other branches of service, whether we're patrolling together or something like that.
Okay, so there's not, I get that. Is you obviously still respect one another, right? You both served.
Absolutely.
So that's first and foremost.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, have now both of you have deployed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well,
So so talk to us about that. So talk to us? I am an us now.
The world.
I am asking for
You
the
and your
world.
audience.
thanks, buddy.
I am asking for the world. Talk to us about that experience. What would you share with one another about that experience? I'd love for you guys to share that here.
I guess it'd be just like the same conversation we just had with where were you stationed? Then it's, hey, where were you deployed to? Iraq, Afghanistan. Are there any overlaps? That kind
Where
of
were
thing.
you deployed to?
For me, it was Iraq, and then Afghanistan, at Kandahar, and then at Camp Leatherneck.
Yeah. So for me, I was deployed to Qatar, and then we did a lot of different missions to other bases in the general area as well.
Okay, so you were LUD'd?
I was at IUD. Yep.
Ah, okay.
What is that?
Yeah.
It's I'm trying to think like, so IUD is kind of like, it's a hub, but it's where, a lot of different branches, come together, and there's kind of like it's a stopping point.
A staging base, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, the more interesting piece for me, not that the military is not interesting, but it's so specialized. And I'm like, I would just probably sit here and go, and what does that mean? And what does that mean? Oh, that's interesting. And that would be boring. So,
And this is your show, so
yeah.
I didn't want to say it again because I was like, oh, that's kind of odd. It's a little arrogant. It's the people's show. No, but I think that what's important too is the other piece that I thought would be a really nice tie for you guys. And Casey, you're demonstrating already. You have two little ones back there, and Ricardo, you have five little and big ones. Right? They range.
Yes.
So, what is it like to be in the military with kids? Casey, you alluded a little bit to this when you were talking about your journal and kind of what you hope for them. But what have you guys found is how has your fatherhood been impacted by your experience in the military?
I think for me, it's just to not be, I want my kids to not be afraid of hard work, right? It doesn't have to be sexy, it doesn't have to be exciting or exotic. Just, somebody has to dig the ditches, or somebody has to, move stuff from one place to the next. And it's not always going to be fun and exciting, but it needs to happen. And I want to instill that kind of work ethic in my kids.
How do you go about that? Like what? I know your kids, so I'm curious. How's that going?
It's a work in progress, but we're lifetime learners. So, but I think it's, I think part of it is just modeling. What do they see us, doing? What do we allow them to do? And I try to think back to when I was, their age. I didn't want to work hard. It wasn't like, oh, let me work hard because it's a good thing to do.
I remember that.
I was waiting for it.
Okay. Okay. No, but I think it's one of those things where, like, oh, clean your house or clean your room or put your stuff. I muted myself. It doesn't quite make sense until you're in your own space or in a roommate situation. You're like, oh my goodness, why don't you clean up after yourself? Am I like, it's like you're basically holding the mirror in front of your face. It's like, am I like that? And so it becomes a little more real at that time. But right now, there's there's still kids and they're growing up, and so they just it's one of those things. Over time, they will pick up on some of these things, and hopefully they implement it in their lives as well.
So Ricky, share with Casey, because he doesn't know this. I don't think I shared this much with him, but share with him like your kids, the age, all of that, the bio data.
The bio data. Let's see. Hold on. I gotta look it up here. So like Valerie said, 5 kids. Oldest just turned 15. So 15. 4 girls and 1 boy. The boy smack dab in the middle. So 15, 12, 10, 6, and 4. The kids go to 3 different schools, high school, middle school, elementary school. And I know people are like, oh my goodness, 5 kids. It was, go from 0 to 1. That was like, oh my goodness, the world changes. 1 to 2 seemed like, oh, this is busy. 3 was like harder, but then I think you can see this too. Your oldest is more independent, and so as the kids get older, it's just a different type of stress. Like, oh, I got to give it up for those parents who have like twins or multiples, or they're all in the same age. So it's just the scale of work is much harder. But I think that's at least for me, that my experience has been. 5 isn't as difficult as it seems. It's just we just need a bigger car and a bigger house for everyone to live in. That's about it.
Yeah.
And probably larger amounts of patience, larger amounts of
at times, yeah.
You have to give it up for parents with multiple. So Casey, you should know Ricardo's a twin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
wow.
So my mom had my brother and I were twins, but I think we were good kids. Right, we had a big sister who took care of us, and she was the best thing for our family. Okay, I said it.
Checks in the mail.
We're gonna edit that in post.
We're gonna edit that. Oh, by the way, I don't edit any of the shows, so whatever is shown, it is shown. Just so you know. So good. Thank you, Ricky. Yeah, so he has a fraternal twin. So you don't have another lookalike Casey. It's just him.
Aw. I mean, could you imagine though, all 3 of us walking down the street together?
That'd be wild.
That's a wild Oreo cookie.
Oh my gosh.
A very handsome one though. You guys are both handsome, so that's good news.
We'd be that's awesome. We'd be the most handsome Oreo cookie to ever walk down the street.
Tasty. I prefer tasty. Exquisite.
Why?
No. Okay.
No. That's gross.
Oh my god.
So, Casey, what about you?
Let's get back to this Oreo thing.
Yeah, so those kids. So how about those kids?
No, first off, I got to give you like you and your wife like major props for being able to do everything that you're doing, because being a parent is beyond it's the most rewarding experience. I can speak for myself, and I'm sure a lot of parents feel this way. It's the most rewarding experience, but it's like a 24-hour job,
Yes, that never stops. They never leave, right?
Exactly.
Well, I guess at some point they'll leave, but right now, no, we're in the fight.
Exactly, and unfortunately, the 7-year-old knows where the spare key is. We've tried, No, we haven't. We've not tried to put. For anybody listening, no, we have not tried to put.
Full disclaimer, yes. But if you could safely.
If things
you have friends across the street, right?
Yeah.
You can last a couple days.
Right. That's another thing. Like, I think, like, I didn't get a. Not that I didn't get a chance. I actually chose not to raise kids in the military. There was a time because people hear you did 13 years. 13 years, you're almost there. Why didn't you do?
Yeah, it's like I was going to ask, like, well, there's 7 more. You could, but that is kind of the make or break point. It's like right around the 10, the 12, the 13-year mark, you start making decisions as to, well, is this what I want to do long term? the 7 productive years in the civilian workforce.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi.
Do we want to
Okay.
meet her? Who's this?
This is Maddox. Do you want to say hi?
Maddox.
Come here. You can say hi.
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
Hi.
Adorable. You said Maddox?
Ricardo. Yeah, Maddox.
Maddox,
Maddox.
nice to meet
Hey,
you.
Maddox.
He can't hear us, but he's
Oh, hold
like,
on a second. There
hi,
you go.
You hear us?
Maddox.
Hi, Maddox.
Nice to meet you. How old are you, Maddox?
How old are you, buddy? He's like,
He's like, she's stunning.
exactly what he's
He's
saying.
like,
Your dad's gonna give you all the snacks that you want. All the snacks, anything. You can't hear anymore. And he's back down.
He's
There we
like,
go.
you made his day. He's 2. When I had, another thing I would like to know more about, raising kids in the military past. I got to, my son was 6 months. I was already when we found out that we were pregnant, I was like, okay, my enlistment's almost up and this is going to be it. And one of a couple reasons for that was, we talk about 7 years. Well, he's 7 now. I would have gotten out, and I think back, and I don't regret my decision one bit, because that could have been, 5 years, 3 years, 6 years of his life, depending on what was going on in the world, that I would have missed out on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when a parent leaves, their partner is then kind of a single, right? They're a single parent taking care of the family, taking care of the household, learning to live and be, have that role by themselves. And then you just constantly introduce this, hey, I'm back, now I've got to reassimilate into the family. We've been living our separate lives for 6 months, a year and a half. Now we got to learn how to do this all over again. And that just wasn't something that I was willing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was not easy. The military doesn't make and at the time my wife was she was also a Marine, so we're dual military couple.
Right.
We had 2 kids while she was still in, and she was pregnant with our 3rd when she got out. But that was one of those things where it's like, we were, in fact, and I think God was trying to give us a very clear message. She wanted to deploy. I was slated to deploy. And then it was going to be like her mom would come out. And we were in California at the time. Her mom would come out to watch the kids for part of that time. And then we both be deployed at that time. Then my mom would come out, and they'd kind of like, exchange, exchange kids. And then she would take them for the rest of that time. And then it was just like, this is not going to work. That's too much. And so she decided to get out. And yes, when I deployed, she was basically a single parent for that period of time. And so it's one of those things where I think going in, we knew we wanted to have kids, and so it was never like a showstopper. Like, we weren't going to have this. We were not going to have kids while I was still in. That wasn't a thing that we were too concerned about. And I guess on one hand, our kids had some pretty cool adventures that they can remember. Or we see pictures of them. Look, you were here. I was never there. I don't remember that. But then the flip side is they never had really stable friendships. So moving every 3 years, 4 years, it was like starting all over again. And so we're very mindful of that now, trying to find some stability so our kids can develop those deep friendships that they don't quite have yet.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, so Casey, I don't know if you knew this, but our dad was in the military. He was in the Army for 27 years. So similar to you. Now, the cool thing, I guess, maybe for our older brother, is that he and I was 9 and he was 10 when my dad joined the military. And then we immigrated from Panama and kind of hopped around. But for Ricardo, for Ricky and his twin, Rolando, you guys were only 4 when we moved. So the experience that you're talking about, like having missed out, I think probably was more marked. I imagine, maybe Ricky, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably more marked for you guys than it was for Eduardo and I. And what was interesting too is, Casey, and you were talking about being absent for those years. It was sometimes really tough. My dad was gone for such long periods of time during those formative years. I hate to say this, and he knows this, I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I don't remember him in really important gaps in my life. I don't remember him being around. Like, I don't remember him sharing, like he didn't know certain things about me, or he didn't go to certain places that we'd gone. Like, there were all these gaps. I'm hard pressed to remember, like, was dad there for this? Well, he's not. So it's really, I think the concern that you had is actually quite valid, because I do, although he and I have a beautiful relationship now and really well connected, I remember my dad as an adult. Me, an adult. He's always been an adult for me, but you know what I mean. I don't remember him as a baby.
Which, that's. But I think you're right. It's on one hand, you don't know what you don't know in terms of. I never had that experience, so and I think similarly with our kids, they haven't had a long-term experience in the same location, so they don't know that that's different than what they were used to with moving every 3 to 4 years. And so, I mean, I think they are, especially our oldest, like, how do you reach out to friends? And it's a lot easier now, right, with the internet and Zoom. You can reach out and touch your friends and talk to them and stuff. But they probably, right now she's on Zoom with her friend that we had in Hawaii, right? So it's one of those things. She can do that. Mm-hmm. The 4-year-old doesn't know any different. Our 6-year-old, I was born here, but she doesn't have well-defined memories either. But right. I think to your point, Valerie, about the quantity versus quality, right? That our dad was in our lives. That's the part that is potentially missing. Like, hey, when we took these pictures, you were never in them. What was going on? And you just don't have those shared memories that you would normally have in a more stable environment.
Exactly. It worked, right? I think it worked for us.
Look at where you are now. You are a podcast extraordinaire. You are the best sister a brother could have.
And I missed your call when you were trying to prep me for your piece. So sorry. No. I'll read it later. Sorry,
just say it from the heart.
What happens? You get stuck in the crossfire.
Don't worry, we'll just do it in post.
Yeah. Casey, do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I've got 2 brothers and a sister. And my dad he was in the Army, but he wasn't, he was out by the time that we were born. But he also, we're a child of now I guess we on this side now, Valerie. I was, child of divorce, and he was, a truck driver. So he was always gone. And that probably, as I was hearing, both of your shared experiences with your dad, I'm thinking now that probably played a big role in my decision to leave the military. Because I remember it being really difficult to not have support for both parents. And then you got to, from my aspect, you've got to grow up really fast, right? You got to learn how to take care of yourself. And there's some grit that comes with that. And at the same time, as a child, I didn't want, my boys to feel like they had to take care of themselves, or they had to, their mom is amazing. She's, just an amazing person. And yet, if I weren't in their lives, there's still that part that's missing, right? And I didn't want them to look back and wonder what was missing or why it was missing.
What do you think what's missing for you, like in your experience?
What's missing for me in my experience?
You mentioned because your father was not there all the time. So what did, like, one example of something that you thought was missing that you would have liked it?
For me, I didn't, I kind of had a non-stable, hey boys.
I heard the menace in that tone.
Take the wrestling outside.
I know, right? I was like, man, this is getting deep. So I do this thing under the table where I'm actually telling them to rile themselves up so I don't have to answer the question. I'm like, yeah, come on. Valerie's getting deep.
This is Valerie all the
I
time.
can wait. I can wait.
I know you can. I've seen you do it. What for me, what was missing is that stability. I wasn't in a stable environment, and easy boys. It is just. I mean, honestly, just as a parent, somebody to just have space with you, or just say, hey, wow, this is, as a kid, you must be going through a lot right now because a lot's happening in your world. Like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here for you. And I'll do my best. That's probably what was missing for me.
Sounds like a bit of, some mentoring, some partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that. And Ricky, what about you? I'm curious, and you and I may have talked about this before, but I think for the benefit of the conversation, what would you say was missing for you and Daddy having not been there throughout those formative years, or the moving around, perhaps?
No, I like moving around. That was fun. I think in terms of what was missing, I think is just, I agree with Casey. Those kind of hanging out, just, hey, what's going on? Not much. And then having those conversations that just kind of go through different spirals or different rabbit holes just because you felt like talking about it at those times. Hey, you know me. Sometimes I feel like talking and sometimes I don't. And you can't program like, all right, so now I'm ready for that quality, deep dive. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And I think with our dad, we never quite had a chance to just have that random deep conversation about stuff that we can have now, and how much it's more beneficial would have been to have had that then. As an educator now, I can kind of think back to, so you'd have some background knowledge about things that may not have made sense at the time as a teenager, but then as an adult, you can kind of like, so that's what he was talking about. Oh, now I get it. Versus the not having that conversation at all. Then as an adult, like, I don't understand this, and then I'm trying to build that up much faster. So that's what I would say I missed the most.
The context, yeah, that's interesting. So you guys have both said a few things I wanted to highlight, unrelated to this idea of fatherhood, right? But Casey, you mentioned you have 2 brothers and a sister, and that's like us. Ricky, you also have 2 brothers and a sister. Yet another reason. I didn't know this.
It almost feels like we're just not quite strangers.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's so weird.
And I had no clue. Everybody
the
had
Venn diagrams are like.
I know.
It's so funny. Valerie's like, I had no clue, and she puts on her glasses. Brothers and sister. Check. Family check.
So Casey, are you the youngest or oldest?
I am. I'm in the middle. So I'm kind of I'm at the bottom, but I'm the youngest of the brothers, and then I have a younger sister.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That was a strange.
So that means you're four siblings, right? You and 3 others.
No, it's me. I make 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 4 siblings. So you are. Let's see. I'll hold it this way. So, are you here?
I'm on the ring finger. Here. There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So sister, I'm a Marine, so you gotta break it down body style, right? So
I was actually I was like, great math, my only weakness.
All right. So you're the second youngest.
Yeah. And I'm same for me. I'm technically the second youngest since I was born 16 minutes before Rolly. So.
That's true.
Another.
I know, right?
What? Facebook gonna explode any minute now.
I'm lucky I got headphones in because my brain would just start pouring out the side.
So part of this, and I know we could probably go on forever and find these additional ties, but I'm curious now, as we're coming to the end of our hour together, what is the experience like for you? What are you taking away from having met each other on a podcast, for example?
Oh man, I think as soon as the first couple sentences that Ricardo and I said to each other, I was like, man, this dude's cool. and like it was just like a mesh. And so I'm taking away, like, number one is like now this other, connection with somebody that I hadn't, I only knew through you. And I mean, I think that's wonderful to be able to connect with people, especially really, really awesome people. Another thing is like, it's, we don't, to me, I don't think we take a lot of time to really sit down and I'm saying this very general, of course, but I don't think we take a lot of time to really sit down and get to know each other anymore. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that, I think, and but that's what's really missing. And this is a global thing now. I don't think we take enough time to sit down and get to know each other. And it could be many reasons. It could be like fear of the unknown, fear of looking like a fool or something like that when you're talking to somebody. But I think if anything, what I'm taking away is just, Valerie, what you continue to do with the show is to show people the amazing things that can happen when you start building connection. And it just takes that first sentence or the first bridge, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's one of those, would I have reached out to you, Casey? I mean, I didn't know you from Adam, right? Would I have reached out to, oh, Casey Field, let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'd say no, right? Because, we have, I think part of it is just time and, who are you? I don't know you. There's no like, built-in opportunity to form a relationship, at least outside of what Valerie's put together here. And so I think, it's one of those things where people can get along with a lot of people. You just have to be in the same room with them, right? And in our case, in the same virtual space, so you can have that, just have a conversation. Hey, we have similar, you either a lookalike, family situations, military experience, and just putting it all together. But you won't find that out without actually getting to know people. And so that's one of the things I like about this podcast. And I always joke with Valerie about how she can go to the supermarket and have a deep conversation with the checkout person. So how do you feel about that? Why did your eyebrow twitched? Why? What happened? And it's like, but you can have those deep conversations in a way. In a safe place, and Valerie's a good facilitator for this kind of stuff. She asks the right questions, she pulls on the right strings, and helps to bring us out, out of our comfort zone in one sense, but also just into a more meaningful relationship with people that we don't normally get to talk to.
I really appreciate that. But I think the question that Casey really wants to know is, do you also think he's cool?
He's cool.
I mean, I wasn't gonna.
He is an awesome person. He is. Right? He's awesome. It's an opportunity for me to meet somebody I have not met before, and he is cool, interesting. I mean, I was kind of like, maybe we should look him up on Facebook and become Facebook friends with him, just to kind of share in that sense, our lives together.
You're going a little fast, Ricardo. Facebook.
Don't worry, I'm gonna swipe left or right. How do you?
Is that Casey with an EY?
Let me see here.
So now I want to double back. So I'm curious, what were you expecting, if you were expecting anything? And if so, what surprised you?
I'm not sure I had I had really any expectations. I knew that it was going to be something special because, Valerie is something that you're doing. And I've always experienced you as a person that doesn't just do things to do things. There's a purpose behind it and there's passion behind it. So I knew this was going to be special. What I think, again, what surprised me is just like the ease upon meeting Ricardo, like the ease that we just like got along, started, cracking jokes. It just felt really comfortable,
Ricky, what surprised you?
What
did you expect?
What did I expect and what surprised me? Because I didn't have any like preformed opinions like, oh, this is going to be a drag or this is going to be exciting. It was just like, all right, here's Valerie setting us up for a conversation. Let's see what happens, But I also know that Valerie, you don't do anything halfway. You're very purposeful behind the way you do things, which is great. And so I was kind of like, all right, I was interested, my curiosity of, of knowing somebody, learning about somebody else and getting a chance to meet with somebody else is, I won't say got the better of me, but I was looking forward to this opportunity. So I guess that's the way I would put it. And Casey's he's cool. We can, even if you weren't on the podcast, Valerie, even if you weren't on the podcast, you could like drop off right now, and I think we'd still have a conversation and just talk about
most definitely.
Yeah, right. So
is this like Casey giving his 7-year-old the key? Is that what that's the vibe I'm getting?
We'll let you back in after a few minutes.
Okay.
I don't want to be the one to say it, but I mean, if you were to drop off right now, we'd be okay.
The show would go on. That's right.
I love this. And I would say I'm not surprised because I don't know, there's some instinct in me that pairs some people together. But I was surprised by how quickly the humor and the lightness and the banter started up. I mean, y'all, for those of you watching and listening, it happened like the 20 minutes that we had before we actually turned on the live stream. It just started up, and
it's a Saturday afternoon thing, I think.
It's a little punchy. Everybody, okay. No, I don't know about that, but it was fun. It was really fun, and so I appreciate that. And I think what I've also learned in the process myself is the fact that these, especially in the military, I was a little bit nervous. I gotta admit that it would get kind of technical, and you talk about like the AFSE and then MOS, and we'd have all these acronyms thrown out, and you'd have all these experiences, and that'd be kind of like,
cool. Yeah,
that's cool, great. And I learned from an experience I had in an earlier podcast that I can still elevate the conversation so that more people could engage, and they don't have to have military background in order to understand. But you guys are also so much more than what you did in your career. And I know we just literally just peeked behind the curtain very, very quickly. There's a lot more there. Trust me, I know more about Ricky than I do about you, Casey, but in general. But I know there's so much there. There's such depth and there's such commitment to the things that you guys do and how much you care about the stuff you do. So actually, I don't want to miss that out because you did kind of tease a little bit on that. What do you guys do now that you're out of the military?
What I do is classified at the highest levels.
You don't even want to know how many people he's had to kill.
Yeah.
For just even breathing.
Did you
I am Jason Bourne.
I mean, Valerie, you've had some close calls. You don't even know. You've had some close calls.
I prefer Lupin. I'm more of a Lupin guy.
Lupin.
Lupin, yes.
Lupin. Have you seen Lupin, Casey? It's good stuff.
What is it?
Check it out. Lupin and Netflix.
On Netflix, yeah.
All right.
It's pretty cool. It's like Valerie, what'd you say? It's like a mix between Ocean's 11, Jason Bourne, kind of. It's pretty neat. It's interesting, and it's in French, but also simulcasted in English.
Yeah.
If that's
Lupin. So.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. Check it out. I love Netflix recommendations. I mean, I bought the TV, but I don't own it. So.
You gotta use your own device, otherwise you're stuck.
Exactly. So I'm gonna check that out.
But you guys are clearly not in Ocean's 11 nor Jason Bourne. So what do you do now?
How do you know?
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Like, that's a big assumption.
This isn't really a house behind you.
I know. Valerie, I'll have you know at this elevation, at this elevation, I know.
How elevated are you?
I know that I can run.
It is California,
I know I can run at least a fourth of a mile at a light jog before I get winded. Just letting you know.
You're silly.
But in all seriousness, I'm an elementary school teacher right now, teaching math and science, 5th grade math and science.
That's so awesome, man. You're like your whole life. It's from what I know about you now. It sounds like your whole life has been dedicated to service, and now to me, there's no other important profession than educators. There's no other
thank you.
profession than educators. I really believe that, and Yeah, I think also they're very undervalued. Educators in this country are very undervalued, and that's a whole nother thing. I appreciate what you do.
Yes, it's a whole other podcast.
No.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But I'll also say that parents are the first educator, right? So it all starts at the home.
Mhm.
And so by the time they get into the classroom, there's been 5 years of formative experiences that are setting us, that child up for continued success in the classroom.
Mhm.
But thank you, Dad. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we try to teach our kids, before they even went to school, this is how the proper way to eat glue. And so they already had it, like, as soon as they got in, they knew exactly how to do
Hey,
it.
these are critical skills that they need to master before they get into, kindergarten. So yeah,
Mhm.
It's like,
Mhm.
none of that Elmer stuff. You got some,
Exactly.
got some gorilla.
quality.
Let me tell you how to play freeze tag for real.
You push, you shove. You don't just
Yeah.
push. It's not a little tap. You gotta show them that you really mean it.
Yeah. The harder you shove, the more you like them. That's
That's
how
right.
it works.
Yep.
And Casey. So,
Yeah, I do a lot of different things. So I'm a professional coach. I'm also a mentor coach. I lecture with you, Valerie, at the Haas School of Business, and we also, together with Valerie, are faculty coaches for Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. And I love doing all those things while traveling the world and doing it, and especially working with people who have a bigger purpose than I guess I would term it, than just themselves. They want to have more impact in the world. Those are the people I love to work with. Those are the people that usually I find myself coaching the most often.
that's so cool. So again, yet another time. Is this how many? That 4 or 5 fingers now? That both of you educators.
We're gonna have to all put ours together
Yeah.
somehow.
That you both of you have committed your lives, right? Truth be told, both of you have committed your lives not only to the service in the military, but also to serving your families and then serving leaders and future leaders as young as 5th grade, right? And then also adults in your coaching profession.
Yeah.
And
And everyone needs that level of support, right? So just as much as teachers get a lot of credit in the classroom, coaches are just as important to help adults and young adults get that establish solid directions in their lives, and if not, just to have that conversation of what do you want to do.
Mhm.
Oh, haven't really thought about it, and somebody who's a little more experienced that here's how you can navigate the world, here's how you can navigate the things that are going inside your head and your heart, to put you in the right position. Those are important skills to have. And so thank you for those coaches out in the world and you guys for the job that you do. So
yeah. Well, I want to acknowledge both of you. We always say thank you for your service when you're in the military. And I would also add that this thank you for your service and continuing to develop yourself and continuing to pour into your families, continuing to devote your time to then give to other people, right, as educators. And that's the thing. I think all of us should be thanked for our service. Find somewhere to serve, find somewhere that matters to you, somewhere that is needed, somewhere that is appreciated, missing. And first of all, this is a service to me. The fact that both of you said yes, that you're willing to come and first of all experience this experiment, and also to share so joyfully. That's the thing that I walk away with. There's so much joy in our conversation today, even though Casey is now admonishing his 7 and 2-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear that. There's a ton of joy over here.
A lot of joy.
push it till it hurts. No. It sounds like you have some Marines in the making over there. That's good. That's good.
I'm sorry, what now?
It's all good, Casey. Thank you. But I do want to say thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you for contributing yourselves. I will definitely encourage you guys to stay in touch somehow, because I think there's so much there that we barely scratched the surface today. But any last words before we sign off? Yes, he's like,
I feel the same way.
I'll leave it with that. Sometimes life gives you joy, and sometimes life gives you, I don't know what this is about to be, pain or something else.
Oh.
I'm so happy to, honestly, really happy to be here. I'm sorry for the screaming baby.
It's all right. Don't worry, Casey. It's part of life. We're good.
I mean, it could be you screaming, but it's the baby screaming, so yeah, that's good. No,
Ricky,
but
anything?
no, just thanks for inviting me, and thanks for thinking of me, and for this putting this all together. Awesome.
Right on. Well, more to come. For those of you who have watched this wonderful episode, please make sure you subscribe. And actually, I'm not going to tell you. Ricardo's daughter, Carly, is going to tell you. Here she is.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.